I really like that story. Don't you like that story? One of my favorite parts of the story is actually where she says, and I was praying with my friend Robin. And just think about this. What if someone's story comes up there in the next few months and they say, I was praying with my friend, and they say your name? That could be the thing. That could be something that happens. That should be a goal of yours, to see your friend's video up there and they say your name for some reason. So that would be pretty awesome. Just keep that in your mind as something that God could do through you. So I hope school's treating you good, and maybe not. I don't know. I saw some grimaces real quickly. I just said the word school. I remember when I was in high school, I would be at a really, long, horrible day, full of all the tests and all the yuck and all of that kind of, you know what I'm talking about. And I'd be all stressed out, and I would get home. And the thing that would always make it worse was that I had been working all day at school, and then you get home, and what do you have to do? Homework. And I was like, if I could just do the school thing and then come home, I could have peace. But I have to get home, and then I've got to study for tests. But about my junior year, I figured something out, and it really helped me. See, I would get home, and it didn't matter how much homework I had. It didn't matter what all was going on. I would walk into the living room, and I would sit down on the couch, and I would grab my favorite snack. You know what that was? Yeah, that's right. I would grab where's it? Oh, here it is. A fudge round, okay? I don't know if you know what these are. This is basically a brownie with icing in it, okay? And that's right, Dr. Pepper. If you know me, you know that. Okay, so, and I would grab one of these. And I would get on the couch, and for 30 minutes, I would watch a 30-minute TV show. And for 30 minutes, I had no homework. I had no responsibilities. I would just relax, right? That was my way. In fact, it was so good for me, and I know some of you are stressed out. At the end of service, all of you can have some of these. I got some for everybody, okay? If you don't like Dr. Pepper, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. But I got those for everyone that wants that. And so we'll do that at the end, okay? But this was my way. And you probably have a way that you relax, okay? Some of you are nappers, okay? You're stressed, you're going, who's the nappers? Nappers, okay. All right, yeah, that's some of you. Some of you, it's music. Whose music is what you got to turn to? Wow, that's a lot of that, okay? Who's video games? Video games? Okay. It's like, yes, I like to come home and pretend to kill people, all right? It's a little bit of a weird way to cope, but okay. Some of you, it's like Netflix or YouTube, any of those, okay? No one? Okay, a few of you. All right, we've all got our different ways that we relax. And so you've got your things that you do that kind of helps you to just chill for a little bit and just relax. Because all of us deal with stress, or all of us have things that we're concerned about, or things that maybe are weighing on you a little bit. And we all want to get over that. And sometimes we at least find a way to ignore it for a little bit, okay? Well, in fact, some of you have even discovered that Wednesday night, here, is kind of like your midweek. It's your midweek fudge round and Dr. Pepper is what it is. You get, all the week's been going crazy. You just come in here for at least an hour. You get to just, I don't have to worry about all that. And then you go back to the homework when you get home. I know how some of you have to do that. But some of you, that's what it is. But we deal with that stuff, and we're trying to figure out how to get through it. And I believe that we can have rest from it, that we can, and I'm not talking about taking a nap, I'm talking about having rest inside us, like a peace inside of us. And the reason I think that was there was some people that were like us who were apparently dealing with some stresses and some burdens and things, and Jesus was talking to them and told them that they can have rest. And so we started looking at that last week. If you missed last week, just go to iHeartAmplify.com. You can watch it if you think what we talk about today is interesting and you want some more, okay? And so we looked at this verse last week. It's Matthew 11:28, and Jesus says to these stressed out people, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Are you weary? The weary is this. I am so tired of it. Okay, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of all the homework. I'm tired of all the, worried about this. I'm just weary. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm weary. I'm stressed. We're weary. A lot of us, that's you. A lot of us, or maybe it's not tonight, maybe that's other times, but we deal with that from times where you're carrying heavy burdens. And that could be different things for different people. Some of you it's worry, some of you it's stress, some of you it's fear, some of you it's regret, some of you it's different things. And we have the heavy burdens that we're carrying. And this is what he says, that you can have rest. That you can have rest. So this is what we're talking about, is how that when you're stressed, you can have rest, okay? How that when you have some problems, you can have some peace, right? When you have some hurts, you can have some healing, okay? I'll be here all night, all right, if you like. Okay, we got these situations and how we can get through those. And I was just trying to think about how to just real quickly recap this idea that we talked about. And he says this is how we do it. that we come, he says, come to me and I'll give you rest. And this is something that's very difficult to explain because it's something you actually have to experience, I think. And that is that the rest that he offers comes from a relationship with him. When we come to him, that's when the rest is. And that's very hard for me to put into words, but maybe this will relate to you. Just, I don't know if it will for everybody. There's maybe somebody in your life that when you are with them, you have a sense of peace. Do you know what I'm talking about? So like for me, when I'm sitting on the couch, and I've got my arm around my wife, right? And she's put her head on my shoulder, and we're just sitting there talking about whatever. It doesn't matter what. I feel something inside, okay? It doesn't matter what's going on in the day. Even all the problems are still there, and I feel that. Do you have anyone in your life, maybe not you're cuddling on the couch, okay? But there's somebody in your life that just gives maybe just talking to them on the phone makes you feel better, okay? Now, if you've experienced that at all, what made you feel better was the relationship. So I'm not talking about a relationship with just a person. What if you had that relationship with God? Like imagine what that can do in your stresses. So that's the nutshell of last week, okay? That we want to come to him and experience his rest. So we're going to go on to the next verse and we're going to learn a little bit more about experiencing rest because it's something that we all need and something that we all want. And we're going to talk about a very specific part of it, and that is this, that all of us sometimes have a burden that is our own fault, okay? And these are the most frustrating ones for me. There are times when I deal with stress or a problem or worry or whatever, and the reason I'm dealing with it is because I did wrong or I did dumb, okay? Do you ever do dumb? Yes, we all do that. And because of it, sometimes I have problems, and then I have to deal with those, and I carry a burden or I get weary and all that worn out from my own problems. And so we're going to look at something Jesus said, and it's going to help us to not put on those kind of burdens and to deal with those, okay? So we go on to the next verse, and it's going to seem a little weird at first because I use some words that we don't use, but I'm going to help us get there, okay? So by the end, you're going to go, I got it, all right? But maybe not yet. This is what he says. This is the next verse, next two verses. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. And again, I want to point out, we're not talking about taking a nap. Okay, rest for your soul, rest for your body, lay down on this couch, take a nap, you'll feel good in a little bit, okay? 15 minutes is all it takes for me, okay? But rest for your souls, that's your emotions, that's that stuff inside. That's the stuff she was talking about on her video, okay? There was a rest that she got in the presence of God, right? For her soul and for your soul, okay? For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Okay, so what is a yoke? Because that's weird. Okay, we're not talking about like eggs, okay? What is a yoke? So this is a yoke. You're like, that doesn't help, okay? Now, so that they do is they would take, like you can imagine, there's like two oxen heads here, okay? Well, like oxen, not just the head. They got the whole thing and they put it on their head and then they attach them to this and then they can pull a plow with that. Does that kind of make sense? So sometimes it could even just be one. You can have a yoke of one. But so they have a yoke, they put the oxen and that enables them to pull. Does that make sense? So what's weird about this to me is he's talking about a yoke and he's talking about rest. Okay, because I would think he would have been like, hey, take my pillow on you, okay? And then you'll have rest, right? Like, but just here's what he should have said. Hey, sit down and learn from me, right? Because this seems more restful, right? I mean, like you could fall asleep doing this. I mean, I know some of you are trying not to fall asleep already. I'm sorry. But he said this would make more sense, but a yoke. Okay, you don't put a yoke on an oxen for him to eat, okay? Like you don't take ox and then put a yoke on them for them to like take a nap. You put it on them for what? Work. If you put a yoke on, they're going to do something. So it seems a little bit counterintuitive that you would say, okay, you're going to put this on you so that you can rest. But we're going to understand it by the end, and it is a little weird. And I think we're going to start understanding it by this next thing right here, where he says this, learn from me. Learn from me. This is part of that yoke that we put on, that we're going to learn from him. Because I think this is what happens so much to us. And let me just describe it. Some of you have done this. You have come into maybe a service or something, and or maybe in your room and you were praying, and you had this stuff on you, and you just laid it down, right? And you felt so much better. And you left. And you laid that down. I mean, that stress was gone. And then you went over and you picked up some new stresses, right? And you got some new burdens to carry. And some of you, it's every Wednesday night. You come in, and that's okay. I understand that. And you put it down before him. Or some of you, it works like this, okay? Because I've seen you for many years, some of you. And you go to youth camp, and then the altar is like, tears and blah, 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 and it's all the burdens are gone, right? And by the time we get to fall retreat, you have got like an elephant on your shoulders. You've got so much more new burdens. And you get to the fall retreat, and about that second night, I feel so much better. And then you got to wait till camp to put it all back down. You get a whole bunch more stuff on, okay? And we kind of go through this cycle through our life. And then, I don't know how when you're an adult and you don't have camp anymore. You just carry your burdens, I guess. And so we go through this cycle of back and forth. They're like, wait a minute, no camp when I'm an adult? What am I going to do? No, you're going to learn to deal with your burdens, okay? So we're going to figure out how to not put some of our burdens on, okay? Because in the way that this happens is that we're going to learn from him. He's going to teach us how not to put on some of these burdens and some of these things that we're doing. And here's what learn from me means. See, there is basically two things that Jesus taught. We could put everything he did down to two things. He taught us who God is. He said, I came to show you the Father. And when you look, he said, you look at me, you see the Father. And so when we look at him, we can learn who God is. And he taught us how we are to live. He taught us how to be his disciples. He taught us who God is and how to live, how to treat people, how to act towards people that are bad towards us, how to handle situations. He taught us how to live. And it is in that obedience and how he taught us to live that we can avoid so many burdens. And this is where we get confused. And this is where I'm going to try and clear something up for you tonight. We think, and you maybe think, and people act like, the commands of Jesus are the burden, right? Like that's the problem. And I'm not going to say that they're never a burden, but I do want to point out that he says my burden is light. And I'm going to hopefully show you that his burden is light, and the alternative is very heavy and very the bad burdens. His burdens are actually a good thing, and you will hopefully see that. But we think that all his commands, that's just the problem. If I didn't have to do his commands, then life would be nice and good. And because this is what we believe. And let me show you. I like to do this sometimes. So here we go. Let me show you what we think. And actually, we get some of it right. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, so we would say that if I could get some freedom, right? If I could just be free, if I could have some freedom, then I would have rest. And this is partially true, okay? That freedom leads to rest. In fact, this is actually very true. Like if I got free of my stress, then I would have rest, okay, inside. I would have peace inside. If I could get free of this problem that I have, I would have rest. If I got free of school, right, I would have rest. Okay, freedom does lead to rest. There's a problem though, and that is we don't really understand sometimes what freedom is. And in fact, a lot of people would say, yes, I need freedom. That means I can do what I want, when I want, how I want to do it. I can do what I want with who I want, whenever I want, right? I can do what, we have this me, I want to do, and no rules, do whatever, and that is freedom. Now, it is freedom, but it's spelled differently than this. Okay, I'm going to show you how that freedom is spelled. It's spelled just a little differently. Okay, here's that freedom, where I do what I want, when I want, how I want, okay? Freedom, all right? It's freedom, okay? And it is freedom, but it's dumb, okay? And it doesn't lead to rest. What you will find is that it leads to burdens. Freedom, dumb, leads to burdens. Now I could give you some dumb examples of that. For example, this is a 30-foot tall building, okay? If you go up on the roof, and actually there's a way you can go upstairs over in the offices, and there's a ladder, and you can go up on the roof. It's 30 feet high. It's really cool. You can see pretty much all of Burleson from the top because it's above the trees and all that. And it's a pretty cool place. I've been up there. But you could go up on top of the roof, and you could stand on the ledge and go, I've always wanted to experience flight. And I am a free person, and I want to see what it feels like to just be in the wind. And you could jump, and you could even yell freedom. Freedom! Right? And then, when you are in the hospital with everything on, like all the casts, and people are feeding you, and like you're wearing diapers now, okay? And all of that's not freedom, right? That's what we would call a burden, right? Because dumb, okay, freedom, do what I want, when I want, how I want, leads to that. Okay, there's a lot of people in prison right now who are not free. And they got there because they thought they should be able to do what they want and how they want to do it. They could take what they want and do this, whatever. And that led to that. You could decide, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm free. I'm free of it. And you would be free. No more schoolwork, no more anything. You know what else, though? You're going to have no job, no money, no house, no car, no food. You're a hobo. That's what it is. Okay, you could do that. But it would not lead to freedom, would it? It wouldn't lead to freedom. It would lead to something else. In fact, I had a friend in high school, and the second semester of our junior year, he said, I'm not doing any more homework. I'm done. I'm free of it. I said, I don't think that's a good idea. He said, I'm doing it. No more homework. And he did. He didn't do any more homework. And so that summer, we all went to youth camp, but not Tim. Tim went to summer school, all right? And then people went on vacation. No, he was in summer school. We had a pool party with all of our friends. Was Tim there? No, he was in summer school. Did his freedom bring him freedom? Oh, maybe for a moment, but what did it lead to? A burden, okay? And that's what that kind of stuff leads to. And I'm talking about like dumb stuff, okay? And I understand that all that's kind of dumb. And we kind of understand those on that level. But what we need to understand is when we're talking about freedom, true freedom comes from an obedience to God and living in his ways. And that is what brings rest. And when we think that we can disconnect our lives from that as a believer and find rest, we are mistaken. Because those very things that he has told us are there to bring us rest. And the things when we ignore that bring us burdens. In fact, there's a verse that you've probably heard people quote the second half. Like it's real popular. People say, even people that don't believe in God will quote the second half of this verse. And so I want to kind of point out how close it is to this, okay? He says, learn from me, like I'm going to teach you and I'll give you rest. And rest and freedom are very related, okay? So this is this verse that the second half you may recognize. Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, like learn from me, you are really my disciples. And then this is where you might have heard. Then you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Have you heard someone say that part? Okay, the truth will set you free. But here's what he's saying. You listen to my teaching. Learn from me, just like we just read. And then you're going to know the truth. And what will that do? That will bring freedom. And freedom and rest, they work together. And so this is what he said. If you will listen to my teaching, if you will listen and obey what I have taught, that is the truth that brings freedom. That is the freedom that brings rest. And when we ignore that and do our own because I'm free, what we end up with is more burdens. Now you can probably, if you think very hard, look at a time in your life when you ignored something that you knew God told you not to do or told you to do, and it led to burdens. And I can recognize them over and over again in my life. I remember I thought I had a burden of singleness, okay? It was just all my friends were in a relationship, and I was tired of being single. And there's this whole burden that God put on me that said, hey, you're not supposed to be yoked together. There's that yoke word again, okay? Like connected together with unbelievers, right? He says, I don't want you to be yoked together with them. And you know, the person that you're dating, you're yoked to, okay? This is just the way that kind of works. You're connected. And he says, don't be yoked, connected with unbelievers. But all the cute girls I knew were not believers, or the believers were not single, okay? It just was not working out for me, okay? And so I decided this girl was cute. I liked her, and there's the important thing. She liked me. And so I just started hanging out with her, and then we started kind of dating, and my friend came up to me and said, hey, you shouldn't don't date her. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do it anyways. And I did and dated her anyways. And a few months later, when the whole thing exploded, it was the most stressful a couple of months, few weeks of my whole entire time in college. Because basically, we had all the same friends, and some friends sided with her, and some friends sided with me, and you know how that goes. And it's all just drama, okay? And it was nonstop, just awful. And why did I get to carry all that burden of friend drama? Because I didn't just make the right choice to begin with. I thought singleness was the burden. I was wrong. And a lot of times we look at the stuff that God has told us to do, and we think it's a burden. You listen to what he says about how to treat your parents, and you're like, that's such a burden, okay? You know what? And I'm not telling you it's not a burden sometimes, but what we need to remember is that burden is light compared to the burdens that happen when we live in a life of disobedience to him. So he tells you to do what he tells about your parents and how to treat them, or how to treat somebody that's been bad to you. When he tells you how to handle sex, when he tells you how to handle relationships, when he talks about how to handle all these different things in life, and we go, what he teaches is such a burden. The burden comes when we ignore what he said, and then we have to live in the consequences and the burdens of living against his commands. And you will find such a freedom in his commands, in his teachings, in his ways. See, you may think that being single is a burden. And I get that, okay? But let me tell you what's a burden. Being in a toxic relationship for a few years, and then because you're afraid they're going to break up with you, you sleep with them and, you got pregnant. And now you're pregnant with somebody's baby that you don't want to be with, and he didn't want to be with you, and now you're a single raising a baby. That's a burden, okay? That's a burden. Being single for a little while until God brings the right person in your life, that's not that big of a burden, okay? And so we need to just get a different mindset that he has good things for me and I could trust him. And so here's what I want to just help you see. If you want to keep yourself from picking up some new heavy burdens, I want to have you answer one of two questions. Okay, I want to ask these two questions to you, and they're going to help you to keep from picking up these burdens and putting them on yourself, or you have to keep coming and trying to drop them off. And sometimes you carry them for a long time before you put them down. So here's the two questions. Is there something that God has told you to do that you're not doing? Is there something that you personally feel that God has led you to do, told you to do, and maybe a specific thing to you? Or maybe it's something that applies to all of us, but maybe there's something God has put in your heart to do. Maybe it was to commit to being in church, or commit to being in a group of people, and maybe to joining a group of some kind that is building you up. Maybe it was to talk to a friend about God. Maybe it was to forgive somebody. He's told you, I need you to forgive that person, and you just keep not. And you've got all these excuses why you're not doing what he's told you to do. Oh, I'm so busy, I got da-da-da. Or, they haven't said, I'm sorry, or da-da-da. And you've got reason. And what is happening is because you haven't done it, you're putting on burden. So if you could ask yourself this question, is there something that I said, I know that I need to do and I haven't been willing to do? If you would make a decision to begin to obey, the weight of that is going to start coming off, and you're going to stop picking up some new. Here's the next one. It's the opposite. Is there something he's told you not to do, and you just keep on doing it? And you've got a reason why, and it's kind of, but it'd be so hard not to. It'd be so hard. I mean, it's such a burden. And you know what? Sometimes obeying is a burden. I think that's why he said, my burden is light. Because he wanted you to know it's going to feel like a burden sometime. But in comparison to the end result, it's a light burden. Like, if you look at your life and you realize that all of your friends are pulling you in the wrong direction, like they're causing you to do things you don't want to do, and every time you're with them, you're doing stuff, and you just, and you realize that, and you realize you have to change friend groups, you're like, no, it's too hard. It's too much of a burden. I may need to be alone. There's going to be all kinds of drama if I do that. That's a burden. But if you'll just obey, that's a burden. What you're going to find is rest in obedience. And that's what I want to see for you. I want to see you find rest. But I want to end with this thing. Because a lot of times all we think about is, I'm not supposed to do that. That's all Jesus is about. Okay, no. He said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Take my yoke. And this is what I want you to understand. His yoke, that's something, imagine he's got this thing, a yoke, okay, and he's directing and he's guiding and he's trying to accomplish something. You put a yoke on an oxen so that you could plow and you can accomplish something. And what I'm trying to get at is, there is something he wants you to accomplish. There's something that you have to do. There is a purpose on your life. You are meant to do something great. You have a plan from God on you. And if you could ever get a hold of it, you would overcome so many of your struggles. You see, when I've been so burdened and stressed out and worried, whenever I know I am going towards the plan of God in my life, that stuff just tends to bounce off. That stuff never can grab hold of me because I'm walking towards what God has for me to do. When I read about like Paul in the Bible, and I think, is this guy nuts? He says he's happy and he's in prison, like for no reason. Like he's in prison because he loves God, that's it. Or he says he's happy and he just got beaten with stones and whipped, okay? How is he happy? I'll tell you why. Because he knew what he was going towards, the plan and purpose of God in his life. And all that stuff that came at him, it didn't matter because he's going towards God and he's got something. And if you could get a hold of that, I have something that I am doing for God and I am making a difference for him, you will start to find rest in the middle of whatever comes at you. You have a purpose. Take it on you. Don't let anything else mess that up. So we're going to end tonight with just an opportunity for you to have prayer like we do every single week, because prayer makes a difference. It helps us to lay these burdens down. So if you answer one of those questions I asked a while ago with, yeah, I have this. I need to stop. I need to start. I want to ask you maybe to go and ask somebody to pray with you about it. And let them believe with you and agree together in prayer that you're going to begin something new. Maybe you don't really feel the purpose of God on your life. Let's pray with you and believe that you have a purpose that you can take on. Or if you're just burdened and stressed and weary, let somebody pray with you for peace. That maybe tonight when you leave, you will have a new rest in your soul. Let's pray. Father, I ask that every person here that came with a burden, that came weary, would experience your peace and your rest. Help us, Lord, to learn from you and to do what you said. In Jesus' name, amen.